You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, the #1 resource for growing your function musician business. If you're a solo wedding singer, part of a 12-piece luxury show band, or anything in between, and want to learn from other successful musicians, you're in the right place.
You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, and on today's episode, I'm super excited to be joined by Martyn Rowland. Martyn is a professional entertainer and has been for the last 20 years, and also is the founder of Giggio, a CRM and booking management system for musicians and entertainers. Martyn, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Nice to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this one's been a long time in the works. We spoke about doing this a long time ago.
It was, yeah. I think it was one of your, when you first launched it as a thing, I think I reached out initially and was, saying that it was I love the podcasts about entertainers generally, just because everyone has a even though I'm a magician rather than a musician, like everyone has such a similar process. The way they get gigs is the same. The way they treat customers is the same. So it's just, such a good, interesting overlap. And I think it's actually good sometimes to listen to, stuff outside of your...
Absolutely. 100%.
Outside of your area, because there's definitely tips and tricks that get mentioned, that the musicians are doing that magicians just aren't doing. So it's just, it's definitely a good thing to listen to.
I mean, let's go back to the sort of those days a bit. I mean, I don't know. Are you still working as a magician now, or is that kind of in the past now?
Yeah, I am. I'm still doing it. I don't take on the same amount of work as I used to. And I mean, there's a show called The Magician's Table, which is I'm in at the moment, which is like a public ticketed show in London at the moment, and that's been going for like a year now. So I'm doing there 1 or 2 times a week. But I'm still doing corporate events. My background was always really corporate events. I never got into the wedding thing. I do the odd wedding, but usually that's people that have met me at a corporate event and then booked me for a wedding. So I've never been down the wedding fair route of getting booked up years in advance, most of the musicians here on your podcast do, where it's their years get booked up so far in advance. Whereas with corporates, it's kind of 2-3 months in advance is where people are booking. So I'm still taking corporate work, but I just don't push it in the same way as I used to. I just kind of, it's a bit more responsive, as in reactive rather than proactive.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to learn a little bit about sort of the history of you, kind of where you got started, obviously as a musician, and then maybe the journey that's brought you to starting Giggio as well.
Yeah, so my background was I started doing magic when I was 7 or 8. I was working in Harrods demonstrating magic when I was 19, something like that. And at that time, I was working for Martyn Magic, which was a company that sell magic tricks in Harrods and Hamleys. And then I left there to work for Harrods, but I was working opposite all the magicians that would be on the magic stand. And all the people that work there would work there during the day and do the odd gig in the evening here and there. So I used to pick up odd gigs here and there from the magicians that were in there. But not enough to ever leave a job. It was just the odd one here and there. And then one year there was a magician on the magic stand who got a block booking for a corporate, a Christmas corporate thing at the Hilton in Basingstoke, which was they had these weird shared parties that were horrible shared parties where companies would buy one table and there'd be those party blowers on the table, just the horrific gigs. But he had there were 20 of them and he couldn't do any of them, and he said, I can't do these. Do you want to do them? So I resigned from the job and just said, this will be the moment where I can try and make it work. So I did that December, which was obviously, well paid, but then January comes, February comes, March comes, there's no work. But eventually you kind of get in with agents and start speaking to magicians, and it starts building up. And it just built up sort of organically, really, by getting into, conversations with other magicians, and you get into your little niche groups of magicians you work with and you share work with each other. But I kind of went down the route of just sending out to loads of agents at the time. This would have been 2001. It was early internet. People weren't still, we didn't really have websites and stuff. People were still getting a lot of entertainers via agencies, which I think maybe for musicians it still happens. I think for magicians it just doesn't anymore, because there's if someone wants a magician, they'll just Google magician. They're not going to find an entertainment agent who's going to find them one. The old days when no one knows how to find a magician. So I went down that route and ended up getting 3 or 4 agents that would use me regularly. And that was kind of enough then. That was, enough to keep to start off and keep going. And if once you start doing a good job and you're reliable, you turn up and answer the phone when they call to, see if you're available, you just end up getting more work basically. So that's kind of how it started. And I never really did that much direct work. It was pretty much all from agents at the beginning. But then, as sort of word spreads and you get your website, you start getting inquiries, and then it became a bit more like 50-50, half from agents and half just direct work.
I imagine, obviously you just said social media didn't play a part then at all because it didn't exist, but I imagine it does a lot now for different musicians magicians, sorry. Because it's such a visual thing, so easy to show on social media that must be a huge tool for it.
It is. I suppose probably because I'm not pushing in the way I used to. I don't put that much stuff online, but there are magicians now who don't have a website. Everything goes on TikTok and Instagram, and they're just dealing with someone sending a direct message and then sending them a booking form or something. It's like a very different process to even how it was 10 years ago. So yes, but magic, same as with music. It's people want to see you do it. They want to see you actually have done an event before and have done it. But magic does have the thing as well where you can film it, you can film the reactions. Quite often the reactions for magic are better than putting the trick on, because it's one of those things where people want to know what they were reacting to rather than actually wanting to see the trick itself. That the intrigue is what's making people react like that. So some people can just put up loads of reaction shots and that's kind of enough as a show reel.
Yeah. So moving on from magic slightly then, when did you sort of have an idea about Giggio to get that started? How did that kind of come about?
So it was, I'd been doing magic probably for 7 or 8 years. So sort of around 2010, I was I'd got really busy and I was terrible at managing the admin. It would just become overwhelming. And I'm quite organized with stuff I had spreadsheets, but the problem with spreadsheets is what starts off as being quite manageable, as soon as you get busy, suddenly it isn't manageable. And the thing that, was very easy to keep track of suddenly isn't easy anymore. And you've got a spreadsheet that's got hundreds of lines and you don't know where you are. So it just became that, just too much to deal with. And I know there were jobs that I'd done that I hadn't invoiced for because I'd forgotten, and by the time I'd remembered, it was just embarrassingly late to go, that job I did last year, I didn't invoice you for. So it just got to the point where I just thought, I'm going to either miss a gig or there's just, I'm just going to not get paid for gigs because I'm forgetting to invoice them. So the earliest version of Giggio was a system that I made myself within another platform. And it basically allowed me to generate a contract and generate an invoice and have it sort of in a list so I could see what was going on. And when I built that, it was with the intention that maybe I could, get, other entertainers might want to use it. Yeah. So it became, so that was built. And then the first version of Giggio was actually made in FileMaker, which was this sort of software you could build databases in, but quickly learned that you hit limitations really quickly when you're building within someone else's software. People need features that it doesn't do, and there's no way you can make it do it. So we had that going for about a year, and we had users using it. And then a mutual friend introduced me. There was a magician who knew a programmer who my paths had crossed with him before, but never really realized what he did. And then he became the programmer for Giggio. He used what I'd made already as a template to create what became Giggio. Then we released a version of it. The first web-based proper version of it would have been in 2012. And then a few years after that, we had to remake it because, people started using mobile phones and it needed to be responsive. And so, it then got sort of remade again after that. But yeah, it's been we've had the same programmer from the beginning who's been developing it ever since. And because it's built from scratch now, we've just had so much flexibility with what it can do when there's literally no limitations with, if people ask it to do stuff, it's we can basically build it out and make it work. So that's kind of the route went from me needing something for myself
Yeah.
building something and thinking maybe other people could use it to eventually becoming like a full-blown software company.
Yeah. We'll definitely go more into specifically Giggio in a minute. I want to just sort of go back to basics for anyone that kind of doesn't know what a CRM is or a booking management system is at all. So, I mean, it was one of the first things when I first started listening to sort of like self-help business podcasts, a few years ago now. It's one of the first episodes that was on it. It was why you need a CRM, what it is, and why you should get one. And I still haven't properly got one. I'm still using spreadsheets, and I'm still very unorganized. And like one of the best lessons that they said was do it before you need it, so that you can get used to how it works. Because when you need it, then it's too late because you're going to be too busy to be able to organize it and get it all set up and stuff. And that's kind of where the point I'm at now. I didn't listen to that advice, and I really wish that I had.
We hear that a lot. And also it's most people only actually make that jump because there are people still using like paper diaries and, but people only make it jump when either something happens where they like lose that diary or they miss a booking. Like it's usually a moment like that where they go, oh, this isn't going to work anymore. But by that stage, if you've got like, especially if you're doing weddings and you could have 50 or 100 weddings in the diary, like if you've got a spreadsheet with all of that on and you now need to put that into a CRM, it's a lot of work and you're already busy doing the gigs. So that's the hardest bit is to try and realize that you should start with a system that's scalable way before you need it, because like you say, by the time you actually need it and are going to be relying on it, it's going to be really hard to move over. So it's kind of getting started early is the best thing you can do. And spreadsheets can do work for that sort of thing. It's just the way people usually set them up in the beginning isn't how you need them to be set up when you're 50 gigs in. It becomes a different thing. The things you need to see are very different. And also from the point of view of getting more work, there's stuff that having a booking system or a CRM in place can help you get more work, because you can see patterns and trends in the bookings you've got, which is data you just lose if you're just putting down like event date, what you're supplying, the fee and the venue, and you're just totaling that up basically. Yeah. So there's other aspects that come from having a CRM beyond just being organized as well. Yeah.
So again, just to go back to basics, what is a CRM?
So it is just a customer relationship management system. So it will basically replace sort of notebook spreadsheets and messages in emails, and it will manage the relationships with your clients and tracks all the booking details all the way through from inquiry to getting paid. So the whole workflow. So you take an inquiry, you reply to it, you generate a contract, they can agree it online, you generate an invoice or a deposit invoice, they pay it. So it's every step all the way through from beginning to end. And then at the end of the year, you can do, a report to give to your accountant of your tax return. So it's the whole process really from beginning to end is what it should do. And, it's possible to get different bits of software to do different things. Like you could get DocuSign to do contracts online, and you could, use something for doing your invoicing, and like all these things can be done separately. But by having it all in one place just means that you've got like a workflow from beginning to end. And you can trigger some sort of automation with that as well. So if somebody agrees a contract, it can automatically send them the invoice. So there's stuff that by having it all in one place, it just gives you an advantage over doing it in different places.
Yeah, I've heard it described before as your external brain, and if you can get all of that information and things that you've got to remember out of your actual brain into something like Giggio or any CRM, then
it's a good way.
It just frees up your brain to be able to like concentrate on the other things that are important to running a business.
And I think one of the things somebody said on one of the case study videos that we did, James Roscoe, who's a wedding pianist, said that, and I had this as a magician as well. I never really thought about it, but when you get a booking, you get like, you're all excited to get a booking. It's like, oh, this is great. And you go, oh no, now I've got to do a contract and I've got to do all the admin that's related to that. And if you haven't got a system, it's like that is, you're probably pulling up an old contract, changing the name and the date, and then resending it back to a client. And I did that, years ago, where you forget to change like one of the fees in one of the places, or you leave someone else's name on it, where it's all sort of just a bit hacked together rather than, being an actual system. Because I think quite a lot of people, they try to make it look like they've got a system when they haven't. Like if you've just started, you don't want to make it look like, you've never done it before. So you do want to make it look professional. So you might make like a letterhead in Word, and you might make it look all sort of as professional as you can make it look. So you're always trying to make it look like there's a system in place, even when you haven't got one, aren't you? Like at the beginning, like you've done it loads before. But with a CRM, it's actually just everything flows through to the next step every time. So once you put the details in once, quite often, if they've done an inquiry via your website and they've put their name and dates in, and then you've added some extra details, send a contract, by the time you send an invoice, everything's done. There is no more data to put in. It's just clicking invoice, or if you have it so it gets triggered automatically when they agree the contract, there's nothing more to be done. It all just gets done. So whereas when you're doing it manually, you're kind of copying and pasting a lot, maybe from Word to Excel and then into a report or whatever. Whereas with a system, it just sort of flows through from beginning to end.
Yeah, I have started to try and use one now. It's that thing that we spoke about earlier, though. I've kind of left it too late, and I now have everything in a spreadsheet that I need to put into. The one I'm trying to use is it's called Bloom, which is more dedicated for videographers specifically, and it also acts as like a project management software as well, which I suppose musicians and magicians don't really need because their project is live in the moment, isn't it? But
that's it.
And I know that I need to block out like 2 days to like learn how to use it, transfer it all, and then like just figure it all out. Yeah. And I wish I'd done it so long ago.
In that process, you end up with stuff in two places as well, where you've got all these intentions of putting into the new system, but because the old system's comfortable, you just keep with that. So you end up putting it in two places and never really getting anywhere. Yeah, we use it for Giggio. We use Monday.com as like project management, where and that kind of works well because again, it's like they're projects that go on longer. So whereas Giggio is like literally 4 gigs, and it's like you do it and it's gone. We've probably got like 20 or 30 things on the go that change priority depending on what else is happening, and being able to log that and tag with programmers or whoever needs to be in place for each thing for it to progress to the next step. Is kind of important. Yeah. So it is just finding something that works for you, isn't it? Just finding. I think as close to your workflow as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's why Giggio is great, because it is like dedicated to a certain group of people. And like I talk a lot about niching on this podcast and how people should do that for their like singing business or whatever. But this is what you've done for your CRM as well, which is why it works so well. Yeah, and it was you can get direct feedback from
exactly. Yeah. So it's like that thing about we started with targeting just magicians because that was like super niche. It's now built out and it is for all entertainers and events, like people who do like photo booths, so not necessarily like entertainers as such, or like people who do candy carts and stuff like that at weddings. But yeah, so we started super niche and have sort of gone a slightly more broad from there, but it's still niche. But yeah, it's a good idea because it's much easier to focus on something when you've got a smaller number of people to focus on. It's like easier to pitch your message at those people.
This episode is brought to you by Acoustic Backs and Tracks, your go-to source for premium acoustic back and tracks that sound and feel like the real deal. Whether you're performing at weddings, recording content, or just practicing at home, it's like having a professional band right there with you. Their tracks are recorded by top session musicians with real instruments and real emotion. No lifeless MIDI here. Need something custom? They've got you covered. From key changes to mashups to exclusive tracks made just for you. Plus, their customer support is fast, friendly, and actually understands musicians. No task is too big for them. And here's the best part. Listeners of the Full-Time Function Musician podcast get 10% off their first order. Just head to acousticbacksandtracks.com and use the code FUNCTION10 at checkout. That's function all in capitals and 10 at the end, but you can find their website link and the code in the episode description. So we've obviously talked a little bit about the early days of Giggio, but how has that kind of developed over the last, because it's been about 10 plus years now, is it? Since it was originally started? Yeah. So how has that sort of developed into what it is today?
It's kind of, we take sort of feedback, and any feedback we get of things that people would like it to do, we basically add to a list, and the things that get mentioned again and again, we will eventually add. All the features that are in it now are basically stuff that people have recommended over the last 10 years of saying it'd be great if it did this. And some of them are like really useful things that I might not have known or ever, realized that people would need it. But we can add them as features and, everyone gets to benefit from it. So, it kind of over the years, it just got bigger and bigger, but we've always tried to make it still as unbloated as possible. We don't want to add too many sections to it. We want to keep it so that as soon as you start using it, it's very straightforward to know what to do. You know how to enter a client, enter an event, send a contract, send an invoice. That sort of process needs to always be at the core of what it is. We don't want to add too many other, basically stuff that people won't use. It always needs to be sort of full of features that people will use. And that's what keeps us separate from, companies like 17 Hats or HubSpot or like, the big CRMs that are made for big companies that you can use, for a smaller business, but there's a lot of customization that you need to do in order to make it work. Yeah. Whereas with Giggio, we've got like email templates for putting a date on hold, for sending a contract, for sending a thank you email, like all that stuff, terms and conditions, like all that stuff is just built in. So you could start a trial and immediately send a contract without any customization at all. Like even if you didn't put your logo on it, it'd still have your name at the top of the contract and invoice. So we've just tried to make it as easy for people to get started and then build on that and basically make it as advanced as they need it to be. Like we've got users that do loads of sort of automation with it where emails are getting sent out before the event and after the event, and they've got Zapier connections to make it do other stuff. Mm-hmm. Whereas we're still trying to keep it so that if someone comes in and they're literally moving from a spreadsheet to a CRM, it's still manageable for them. Yeah. So not too much of a learning curve, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I tried HubSpot originally. That was the first one I sort of tried. And I think that's another reason why I put it off for so long, is because it was just so bloated. There were so many features I didn't need or didn't want. And it made it confusing. Like, well, should I be using this? Should I not be using this? And then I tried another one. It was the same kind of thing. And it's taken me a while to find something that actually has got just features that I think that I want. And I have found that now, but I just now need to implement it all. But
so you're one step closer.
Yeah, exactly. So what are some of the features that Giggio specifically has? I know we've talked about a couple of invoices and things like that, but are there any others that people might not know about?
So it kind of, you can, so some of the features like, all CRMs will do to a certain extent that you can do in Giggio. Things like tracking when a gig was confirmed rather than just when you're doing the gig. Like you might know that as a magician doing corporate events like Christmas, end of November, December is where you're doing loads and loads of gigs. So the value of gigs is really high. But what I was never tracking before I had a system in place was when those events were actually getting confirmed, like when the sales were happening rather than when the gigs were happening. So Giggio has like a conversion report, which basically tells you that. But even if you're not using a CRM, just another thing to be able to log when a contract was agreed, as well as when the event is kind of a useful thing, because you might realize like that September, October is the time where all these Christmas bookings are getting booked. Yeah. When you're actually not actually getting any bookings in December because you're just performing at them. So it helps you then manage your, AdWords spend, or if you're doing Facebook or Instagram ads or whatever, like when to put money into that, because that's when the people are looking for entertainers. So things like that that are useful, that if you're not using a CRM, it's quite hard to track. I think something that Giggio does is the pitch reminders, where if you do like an awards show or something that's going to get repeated every year, you can tick a pitch reminder button, which means in sort of 8-9 months time, you can say it to whatever you want. It will pop up on the dashboard, let you know that event could be coming around again. And you can just reach out to that client and say, I did your event last year. If you're thinking of having entertainment again, I'd love to be involved. And just like to check in with that client. That's quite interesting, that, because I think a lot of people are sort of frightened of being sort of too proactive with that sort of thing, of sending people. But people actually thank you for sending that. Go, oh, yeah, it's great. Yeah. We are doing it again. It'd be great to have you. Or even if they're not, it's just they still appreciate that you've thought of, you're quite often they're actually planning that event at the time. They haven't got around to booking anyone yet. And it's like, yeah, perfect. Let's just do that, because that's now something I don't have to do. So things like that, you can just it gets you more work. By having a system in place can get you more work, rather than just, people sort of see having a CRM as an expense, whereas actually it can be, create value as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Does it track leads as well? So maybe clients that haven't booked yet.
Yeah, so we've got there's an inquiry form you can put on your site, and then when you get an inquiry, it sort of adds it to a list of inquiries, and you can send templated emails or edit emails to send to them. So, and you can color code them. So that's another useful thing as well, because you have a list of all your web all the inquiries that come via the website, and you can color code them because they're all in one place. You can, so with my Magic inquiries, I would, if they're not going ahead, I'd put them in red. But if they're going ahead, I'll just put them in green. So it just means that I have an online, just a visual of seeing what your conversion rate looks like just at a glance, rather than having to do any formal reports. You just see how many you're getting. So basically I'd get an inquiry for Magic. I have pretty much 3 responses. It's either yes, I'm available, and they've given me enough information so I can give them a quote. So it's like a yes, I'm available one. I'm available, but I need more information. And again, that's another template that I say where it's just like, yeah, I'm available, but I need to know how many guests and where it is. And then I'll give you a quote. And the third one that I typically send is, I'm not available, but would you like me to recommend someone? Let me know your budget and I'll see if anyone's available. So when you get an inquiry, you just press a button and it sends a response to them. And then if it goes ahead, you just send them a contract, and then the process goes from there. So you do get like this sort of holding area of inquiries where you can see what your conversion rate looks like. So it's a useful thing to just be able to see that, because again, that's one of those things that gets lost in an email. Like if you're getting web inquiries, you're never going to have those all in one place because they're just sort of lost to the in the months.
And
of all
that can end up being lost work as well, because like I've done it before where like someone's got in touch and then I've emailed them, maybe they haven't got back because they were busy at the time, and then whatever. And then I think, well, I should send just a follow up just to see if they're still interested in talking about it. And I've forgotten to do that because I didn't have a reminder. I didn't track anywhere that they'd even got in touch. But then now that I do that, I do follow up with people for a certain amount of time. And most of the time they do get back saying, oh yeah, sorry, things got busy. Yes, I'm still interested. And therefore, because I followed up, you've then got work coming in. So
that's it.
Being able to remind yourself of the leads that are coming in.
Quite often the person that gets the gig, like the person that's doing the looking around, they might send off to 4 entertainers. And quite often it's the first person that gets back that can book that gig with them. And if you're sitting in your email box and it's like, you forget, by the time you get back to them, it's probably gone to somebody else by then. On Giggio, you can set up a connection with Zapier. So I have it so that when I get an inquiry through my website, it sends me an SMS, because quite often I might not check my emails, but I sort of always look at a text message when it comes in.
Yeah.
So they would just say, oh, you've got a message. And from there, there's a link to Giggio where I can just log in and send a response, and it drops their name in, the date in. And if they haven't given me enough information, just that getting back really fast going, yes, I'm available, but give me, a little bit more information. You've already started that conversation going.
Yeah.
So, quite often it's just the first person back that will get the gig rather than necessarily being the best person.
Yeah. It's back to that sort of just external brain as well, where the things that you don't have to think about because they're sort of automated already, or like you could say for that corporate client thing you mentioned a minute ago. So if you, it would just remind yourself, so you don't have to think about reminding yourself, and it just gets everything out of your brain. Yeah.
It's one of those things, isn't it, where when an inquiry comes in, if it's just in your email box, I'm definitely going to deal with that. That sounds like a great inquiry. And then, something happens.
Things happen.
And then you're looking through your emails for something else. You go, oh yeah, I never got back to that person. That's probably gone to somebody else by now. Yeah.
So is there anything else about, specifically about Giggio that you think we should talk about that I haven't asked you yet?
Not really. I think it's kind of, because it's been designed for entertainers, it's just an easy way to get into like the CRM side of things. So if you're not using a system, it's kind of a very easy way to get started with that sort of thing. I think most people, with the way I would have been as a magician, where you're constantly worried, like if the phone was to ring on a Saturday night, I'd be like, oh no, where should I be? Like you have that panic of thinking of I missed a booking or whatever. And getting double booked and those sort of things. So it just means you just don't have that worry that you should be somewhere when you're sitting at home.
I've had it once. Luckily, it ended up all right. But it was a Saturday afternoon or something. I thought I had the Sunday off, and then I get an email just saying, "Just confirming we're all good for tomorrow." Oh, wow. I'm like, but luckily I hadn't booked anything else in, so it was all fine.
And at least they did it the day before. Quite often that message comes in when at the point where 10 minutes after you should have arrived, and it's like way too late by then. It's like, that's I'll miss that.
That's it.
I'll be there in 2 hours.
That's it. It's like backing up your computer as well. You only start doing it after you've lost something disastrous.
That's it. And that's the other thing with having a CRM like Giggio, where it's backed up automatically. You don't have to worry about backups because Giggio gets backed up every 15 minutes, and it's at 2 different server locations as well. So it's got like a disaster recovery that if that actual server center was to blow up, you can switch to the other one. So you have way more security in place than you would have just by managing it yourself. And because it gets pushed to your phone, you don't have to log into Giggio to see your bookings. It gets pushed to your diary, so you can just go to your calendar and see the bookings. So because everyone's got internet everywhere now, you could log in, but ultimately you're normally just going into your calendar and seeing what the client name is, what time you're supposed to be getting there, and going from there.
So you obviously, you said you're working or have worked with a developer on it for the whole time. Do you know anything about that side of things, or how much input did you have in actually like building it out?
So my background as well was with like graphic design. So I design what it looks like, and so essentially the process would go: I would design a page that doesn't do anything, send it to him, and then it goes live and it works. So anytime we had a new feature, all I'm having to do is do the front end of what it would look like, send it to him, and then it all sort of gets hooked up and he does that side of it. So I don't know how that side works at all, really. And, there are times where he might send me portions of the code to show me what he's doing. And it's like, I've got no idea what any of that is. So I can sort of do HTML and, CSS and some sort of, the web side of it, but the actual coding, I've got no idea what goes on with that. But luckily he is a genius and can make that stuff work.
And what about sort of like the future with Giggio? Have you got any sort of major plans for updates or new features or anything like that at the minute?
So something that's gone live this week is like a client portal thing. So once a booking's been confirmed, you can send them like a portal link, and it has the event details on it. They can view their invoices from there. They can send you messages, and something that, because a lot of DJs were using it, like a Spotify chooser, like playlist thing. So you can choose songs and add them to a play and do not playlist that then appears in the setlist section of Giggio. So, and you can add a questionnaire on that as well, which some people use as like a pre-event check-in. Letting people know about access and stuff, or you could use it for like post-event feedback, that kind of thing. So it's just like all that sort of stuff all being in one place. And they can pay their invoices. People in the UK, you can set up, say, card payments. So you can take Visa, MasterCard, and Amex payments, and they can pay from there as well. You can put a payment link in the email, but it just means that they've got this like portal where they can do it all in one place. But so in terms of like future, we've got lists of stuff that we will be adding to sort of make it just to give it more features, but in amongst the existing core framework of not making it too bloated, but just basically making some because we've got like agents using it as well. There's certain features that as a jobbing entertainer you might not need, but agencies, when they're managing, or people that manage like bands and stuff like that, where you might be booking every member of the band, some features to make it easier to find out who's available and to, send out emails to, where people can apply for that job rather than just to get in an email to see if it's available. It's like, here's a job. And when they click a button, yes or no, do they want to do it? And then it can send them a contract from there. So stuff like that we've got in progress. So there's always, probably 20 or 30 features on our list, and then we pick them off, and it's annoying. It's one of those things that there's loads of stuff we'd like to add, but sometimes something will change with either a browser or an iOS update, or something changes, which means you then have to do loads of work to just keep it doing what it's already doing. And I think that the longer you've been going, the less agile you become as a company. At the beginning, you can just add stuff and it doesn't really, there's not really much to think about. Whereas the bigger you get, you end up in a point where everything takes loads more testing. And sometimes something that's completely outside the control of what we do requires, months of development work just to keep it doing what it's doing already.
Yeah. Does it have an app as well then, or is it just on?
No, so it's web based. So you can just add an icon to your home screen. You just add the dashboard to your home screen, and it comes up as an icon, and it's responsive. So when you go there on your site, it sort of feels like an app, but it's just a web app. But you can use it on your phone or iPad or computer or whatever, and it's just need internet access.
Yeah, awesome. So I didn't include this section in the outline I sent over because at the time I didn't know that you were also an entertainer and a magician. So this part of the show, I'm going to throw it up, and if you want to do it, we can. If not, we'll cut this out. But so yeah, there's a section where it's your best gigs and your worst gigs. Just some time to share some experience on on some of the good things that have happened and some of the bad. I think it would be a nice little change to have something that's not musician.
It will probably be similar kind of musicians though. I think best gigs. There's been a few that have been like standout. Like there was one where I used to write a TV show called Tricked years ago. There was a hidden camera magic show on ITV called Tricked, and the other magic consultant on that, the magic writer on that, I work with a lot, a magician called Nigel Mead, and we got booked to make a CEO appear at a conference, but it was in Bangkok. So we designed this illusion that would make this CEO appear, and it was getting built in Singapore and then getting flown to Bangkok. But because they weren't sure if it was going to work, they wanted us to be there a week before, so that if it didn't work, it had time to go back to Singapore, get rebuilt, and come back. Mm-hmm. So we got there a week before. The prop was fine. So we had a week in Bangkok, just in the hotel, just to basically had a holiday, and then did the conference on pretty much the last day, and then flew home after that. But it just meant that it was like this. It was like when you, like usually if you go to a gig, there's a bit of stress involved, or you're kind of always working. Whereas it could have been really stressful if it wasn't working, but we got there, it was working. We just had a week in Bangkok, did this gig, and then went home. So that was kind of a standout, because not often you get things like that. We did another similar thing in Portugal with where we had to convince people that a house had like really high tech AI built in it, but it was actually 5 magicians making do stuff. So like, oh yeah, you think of a film, it'll appear on the TV. You think of a drink, and someone else can make it without knowing what they're thinking. They were actually magic tricks, but dressed up as AI, and that was like an incredible thing, because at the end it all got sort of debunked as not being real. But people, even though we told them it wasn't real, people were still going, so when's this tech available? Like how does this work? It's like no, it was the whole thing has been a lie. But so events like that are kind of good. Worst gigs are going to be just gigs where you know they're going to be bad from the beginning. Like if I mainly do close up. I do the odd bit of stage stuff as well. And if you get a job at like the Natural History Museum to do like an after dinner spot when there's sort of 300 people, that's going to be a hard gig at a corporate where people don't always want to listen. And quite often the success of those will completely depend on how you're introduced, because if the room's talking when you get introduced, you spend the first sort of 5 minutes or as much as you can muster just telling people to be quiet, and after a while you just go, well, I'm just gonna have to plow on through this because no one's listening, but I can't, like, there's no more I can do. So people that are listening don't really just want to hear you asking people to be quiet for the first 5 minutes. And I remember one at the Natural History Museum where I got introduced. No one was listening to the person who introduced me. I went on, no one was listening. And then you just can't get their attention. You're going, well, I'm just gonna go through the motions. I will do my time. The people at the front 3 tables might enjoy it, and then I'll just go again, and that's it. But I think they're kind of the worst ones, aren't they? Ones where you sort of that you haven't really delivered in the way you should. I mean, there's obviously the other ones. Musicians probably don't get this as much, but quite often magicians get these things where it's like, oh, we want you to dress up. It's a theme, so can you dress up? On early days, I remember one where they said, we want you to dress up as a pilot. And I went to pick up this costume from a company called Theme Traders. I think I don't exist anymore, years ago. And when I picked them up, they were like, the Biggles pilots. It was like all the, like the scarf with the coat hanger in it and big goggles. Yeah. It was. And when we got there, it was me and another magician, both dressed like Biggles. And it was a black tie event. And the only theming on that event was that the tables were called named after planes from history. That was literally the only theming. And like when you go up to them, they're sort of going, "Why are you dressed like that? Like what are you doing?" As though it was our choice, You just walk around going, then you spend the first few minutes of explaining why you're dressed as a pilot at these weird events. So yeah, those ones are never fun. And sometimes you get weird ones as a magician where people say, it'd be great if you don't tell people you're a magician. I'm going to introduce you as a friend of mine, and then you can sort of slowly start doing magic tricks, and that'll be really good. It's like, the truth is that's never good, because what ends up happening is, after 30 seconds of pretending you're his friend, you're then doing tricks. They go, so you're not really his friend. It's just one of those things that people think is a good idea, and it's just like, it's never going to work, and it just doesn't work. So they're always a bit horrific as well.
Yeah, beautiful, man. Do you ever get like people trying to ruin your tricks as well, to like kind of catch you out? And
you kind of you do, because the magic is definitely a thing where it can be set up as a bit challenging, like I'm doing something you can't do. So it kind of depends on your approach. I think most people that do corporates have a good understanding of what is going to trigger people into making people want to figure something out, and how just a way to pitch it to make it feel a bit like it's not a challenge. We're just here to have fun. And I think the longer you do it, you'll get people that call out the wrong. If they've done a card trick, they might call out the wrong card, or they might. But you've heard it like a million times on purpose, yeah. But if that happens, we've just got stuff that you can do. That gets you out of that, and then you get a bit more respect from them, because it's like you didn't know they were going to say that, and you've still dealt with it. And so quite often, it's like any job, isn't it? When you've been doing it for long enough, it's like, you're not the first person to say that. I will pretend you are the first person to say that, because it makes it look like I've just dealt with this on the spot, but I've done this a lot. So yeah, it's kind of, you get a bit of it. But that's the joy of corporate events as well, is if you go up to a group of people, and then you don't think they're going to enjoy it or their hard work, you do one thing and move on. You don't have to stay with that group. It's like, if there's 100 people there, I'm going to be doing small groups. I'll just move on to some people that aren't quite as difficult.
I'm absolutely fascinated with magic. It blows my mind every time. I must have recently watched something on Instagram that was obviously a magician doing something, because my algorithm is just throwing loads of it now, and I'm loving it. Yeah,
you're now that's all you're going to see now.
Yeah. So awesome, man. Yeah, let's go on to the last bit of the show then, the quick fire round. And yeah, I guess you can answer these questions in any way that you want to, whether it's for promoting Giggio or for yourself as I keep saying musician, magician as well. It's so ingrained in my head. As a magician as well. So completely up to you. But question one, what is the most effective thing that you've done to market yourself or your business? So
the most effective thing we've done is to do those case studies that you might have seen on Instagram with entertainers, where we do like a short interview with them and cut it together into sort of a 90-second thing about them, what they do, and how they use Giggio, basically. And the interesting thing, because software is a very boring business, but because all of our customers are actually really interesting people, because they're all doing amazing stuff, suddenly you've kind of got this real rich video of people doing really cool stuff. There's a violinist called Carol Thorns who is in a giant bubble. She does this act in a giant bubble, and it's just an incredible thing. And people talking about software is boring, but when people are talking about software but they're showing videos of them in a bubble, it suddenly becomes really interesting. So, basically jumping on the back of how interesting our users are is kind of what's been really successful.
Yeah, I've definitely seen quite a few of those around. And case studies are just a great way to get social proof, as we discussed earlier. Yeah. Question two, what have you learned in the last 3 months that you wish you knew 3 years ago?
So on Giggio, we recently added a little tour that when you first log in, there's a little thing that takes you through, setting up a client, setting up an event, setting a tender contract, getting an invoice paid. And I'm the sort of person, if I start a bit of software and there's a tour, I'm skip, not interested in seeing it. I think that's kind of that sort of had me a bit blinkered with what I should be doing with it, really, because we've introduced this tool and it's really effective, because you get the people that don't want to use it who just dismiss it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But you get people who, are overwhelmed by a system and don't know what to press. They think they might break it if they do something wrong. And to have like a thing that says, click this button to make a new client, enter the details, click this button to make an event, click this button to make a contract. Like, it just takes them through step by step. And by the end of it, they've done like 90% of what they'll always be doing on Giggio. Like, they've basically pressed every button that they really need to press. And there might be some settings they need to change. There might be some stuff they want to add in the future, but ultimately they know how it works straight away.
Yeah, I'm also the same. I generally like to skip things, but then I'll go back later because I don't know how to do something. I'll figure it out.
Exactly, yeah.
So if you were just starting out now, what's the first thing that you'd do?
Well, so as a magician, it would be getting a system in place early before you either miss a gig, lose your diary, get double booked, forget to, get invoiced for something. So it's just getting something in early, so that something scalable in early, wherever it is, just something where you're not going to end up in a position where you miss a gig.
Yeah, honestly, I wish I'd followed the advice I got years ago. Yeah, but there it is. What's the biggest mistake that you've made, and what did you learn from it?
The biggest mistake with Giggio was launching within another platform, because we were just too limited by what it could do. And the tricky thing is as well that, like we were saying, like moving on to a CRM is difficult. We had a lot of trouble getting people to move from the FileMaker version onto the web-based one, because they go, no, this is fine. This works for me. This is fine. It's like, but it doesn't do all these things that it'll be, much better for you. Like, well, I don't care. It's like, this is working. So we had the old FileMaker one for years, and eventually there was only one person still using the old FileMaker.
Was it running alongside it?
It was running alongside it, yeah. So, and this one person who was still using it, he sent me an email when we first launched. He was like one of the earliest people to use it, and he said, and it's a valid concern when a company just set up. It's like, well, what if you decide you don't want to do it anymore, and you in 6 months' time you say we're just switching it off? I'm like, no, we're in it for the long haul. Don't you worry about that. It's like, we're here. So I just felt that I can't. I'm not going to switch him. I'm not going to switch him off, and I'm not going to force him to it. But eventually he did move over to the new one. But I remember that one customer was running at such a loss, because we were having to keep this whole other system running for one customer. And I couldn't say, well, we're going to switch you off, or like give him any sort of deadline. It's like, well, as soon as you want to move, you move. And eventually he did, but it was like, well, that saved a few hundred pounds a month on one customer, because we could then switch it off.
Yeah, that's wild. So this question is normally where Giggio comes up, but do you use any specific tools or apps to help manage your business?
So we use Monday.com to do project management. And if everyone has got stuff where you have stuff that's ongoing, it is very good being able to like tag people in it and, just track progress of stuff and have like sub tasks within each task to, show what needs to get done. So that's kind of good if anyone has those sort of projects on. But as a magician, I use Giggio.
Perfect. Beautiful stuff. This has been really fun, man.
Cool, it's been great speaking to you.
Yeah, where do you want to send people to find out more about Giggio?
So, getgiggio.com. You can set up a free trial. And we've also got a thing that we've just put in, where if you put in get 50, GET, and the number 50 in the where did you hear about us box, after your trial, if you subscribe, you get your first 2 months for 50% off. So there's a little bonus if you want to give it a go, but you don't need to put any credit card details instead to start a trial. So just go to getgiggio.com to start a trial and see how it works.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, man. It's been really fun chatting to you.
Thanks, Jack. Yeah, great. Thanks very much.